My selfish sister walked out on her 3 kids, so I raised them. Years later, I never thought I'd say this, but my own sister, my blood, abandoned her 3 children. And then, years later, when those kids finally found a way to thank me for stepping up, she reappeared, not to offer apologies, but to demand the money they gave me. It was a betrayal so deep, it still burns. My sister, Diana, and we never saw eye to eye even as kids. She always carried this air of superiority, a snobbishness that made every interaction feel like a competition I hadn't signed up for. The moment we graduated high school, we went our separate ways, and honestly, I didn't look back. While I dove into higher education, Diana chose a different path, living with her wealthy boyfriend. Our parents, bless their hearts, couldn't afford to support her lavish lifestyle, but Diana made it brutally clear she didn't care what they thought. She was going to do what she wanted, and they, exhausted, simply let her. Then came the children. At just 20, she had twin girls, and a year later a boy. My parents were thrilled, of course, but also terrified. Diana had no job, no degree, and now, 3 little lives completely depended on her boyfriend's money. It was a ticking time bomb, and I saw it coming. She never married him, a decision I still believe was a massive mistake. If they'd married, at least she would have been entitled to alimony. But when she discovered his cheating, they split. Thankfully, he honored his child support obligations, but he wanted no part in fatherhood. He signed away his parental rights completely. My nieces were 3, my nephew barely 2. Suddenly, Diana was utterly alone adrift and desperately needing help. Despite the years of friction between us, my parents urged me to step in. How could I say no when those innocent children needed someone? I was making a decent living, but it wasn't enough for 4 extra mouths. So, my parents and I pooled what we could, a small monthly sum, just to keep them afloat. The first few months were a nightmare for Diana. With no degree or work experience, she had to start from the absolute bottom. She needed to work tirelessly to advance, but her children were a constant obstacle. Hiring a babysitter was impossible, far too expensive. So, she leaned on me, or occasionally, her few friends. My parents were working and contributing financially, so they couldn't stay home. My own schedule was just as demanding. Her friends, rightly so, had their own lives, their own careers. It meant Diana was stuck in low-wage positions, desperately searching for flexible hours so she could rush home, minimizing babysitting costs. This went on for years, and slowly, agonizingly, I started to see a shift in Diana. I believe she began to resent her own children, to view them as nothing more than roadblocks to her success. She'd say, without an ounce of irony, that they were the only things holding her back. I'd visit occasionally, not for her, but for them. My relationship with Diana was practically non-existent, but I wasn't heartless. I couldn't let those innocent kids suffer because of their mother's abysmal choices. My parents and I kept a close eye, and what we saw, what we heard, was heartbreaking. They would constantly tell me how Diana mistreated them. Small infractions led to harsh scoldings. Simple childish joy, the natural exuberance of kids trying to have fun, would provoke her to lash out, sometimes physically. Their lives were a dreadful existence, a constant state of fear and anxiety. My greatest wish was to snatch them away, to bring them into my home where they could feel safe and loved. But I was powerless. She was their legal parent. I had no authority. Besides, she was still receiving child support and in her own twisted way, trying to make ends meet. I felt a crushing weight for her, but an even deeper, more profound sadness for those children. Things spiraled when Diana started dating again. Every failed relationship became another excuse to blame her kids. She was convinced that the moment men discovered she was a mother of 3, they'd abandon her. What she failed to grasp, what I tried to explain countless times, was that she never mentioned them at the start of a relationship. She'd wait a month or 2, then spring it on them. Of course, it felt dishonest, but she refused to listen. She just kept teasing the children, cruelly reminding them how their father had left, threatening to do the same if they didn't behave. These kids lived in constant terror, their childhood overshadowed by their mother's suffocating narcissism. Years passed like this. There were so many times I considered just taking them and running, but I couldn't. I couldn't petition for custody. While her actions were undeniably wrong, they didn't meet the legal threshold for abuse or neglect that would justify removing them from her care. So, the miserable status quo remained. And those children, those sweet, struggling children, were simply grateful to have me in their lives. My parents were too old to be their confidants, but I was always there, a steady anchor. They couldn't tell their mother about their school troubles, their academic worries, or even their feelings about Diana. But they could always come to their end. And they did. That trust meant everything to me. So, it was no surprise, absolutely no surprise at all, that the moment they turned 18, they packed their bags and moved in with me. They were adults now, free to choose. And they chose me. Diana, as you can imagine, was furious. She had plenty to say, spitting venom about how she'd wasted 18 years raising them, only for them to abandon her. She had the audacity to tell me that if I'd wanted to raise them so badly, I should have stepped in sooner, not after the work was basically done. Oh, I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her she hadn't raised them at all. They'd practically raised themselves while she was chasing fleeting romances, always at work, or on dates with men who inevitably left once they discovered her 3 children. She had no idea what her priorities should have been, and the outcome was glaringly obvious. The children chose the person who was genuinely there for them, not the one who had tortured and reprimanded them their entire lives. It was clear she was miserable, hurting in her own life, and couldn't see how she was projecting that pain onto them. But I held my tongue. I knew, deep down, that her lashing out came from a place of deep unhappiness, and I didn't want to rub salt in the wound. So I said nothing. And that was it. We stopped speaking entirely. Her children had left her for me, and Diana, in a fit of rage, cut ties with all of us, including our parents. It was baffling. My parents had done nothing but support her. I believe she was furious that they hadn't taken her side when her kids chose me, so she simply discarded them too. It's been 7 years since then, and I can tell you, those kids are absolutely thriving. I don't know what Diana's been up to, and frankly, I don't care. All that matters is that my nephew is now a pediatrician, one niece is a teacher with a literature degree, and her twin sister owns a successful hair salon. I helped them secure business loans, supported them financially whenever I could, and I couldn't be prouder of how far they've come from that suffocating home. They only stayed with me for about 4 years, and even then, they were mostly away at college, coming home occasionally. I think they just didn't want to go back to Diana's house, a place where they never truly felt wanted. It's been 2 years since they all moved out, finding their own places, and I am just so incredibly happy for them. I never, not for a single second, expected anything in return for what I did. I genuinely believed it was the right thing. They were just kids, and no matter how strained things were with my sister, I could never be cruel to them. I've always had a soft spot, especially since I never had children of my own or got married. It just wasn't my path. But for them, I wanted to be a parental figure. Their father was gone, and well, Diana was Diana. They needed someone, and my parents were too old, so I stepped up. That's all I did. By the way, if you're still with me, still shaking your head at this whole mess, make sure to hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next, because trust me, this story just keeps getting wilder. So, you can imagine my shock when, about a week ago at my 48th birthday celebration, the kids sat me down. My nephew, bless him, had organized everything, insisting on paying for it all himself now that he was earning enough to truly show his appreciation. After the party, all 3 of them, my nieces and nephew, had this serious talk with me. They told me that now, financially stable, they wanted to truly express their gratitude. They handed me a collective check. I tried to protest, to explain it wasn't necessary, that I was fine, still working, still self-sufficient. But they wouldn't hear it. They said it wasn't about repaying a debt they could never repay. It wasn't about the money at all, but about the encouragement, the belief, the unwavering faith I'd given them. This check, they explained, was just a humble attempt to show their appreciation. I was deeply, profoundly moved by their genuine hearts. So, I did what anyone would do. I shared it on social media. I just wanted to thank them publicly, to acknowledge their incredible thoughtfulness. My sister and I hadn't spoken in years. I was blocked on every platform, so I honestly didn't think she would ever see it. She had never once reached out to us, never inquired about her children's well-being after they left. Yes, they left her first, but that was her doing. The least she could have done was show a flicker of interest. But she didn't seem to care, so I assumed she was fine. I was wrong. A few days after that post, I received a message from her. After 6 years of absolute silence, she reappeared. I should have known. I should have predicted that the moment she sniffed out her children's financial success, she'd emerge like a bloodhound, trying to figure out how much money she could get her hands on. Her message read that she'd seen my post and wanted to talk about her children. She acknowledged she'd made mistakes in the past and hadn't been a good mother, but now she felt compelled to give herself another shot. She claimed she'd missed them a lot over the past 6 years. I just about scoffed out loud. If she truly missed them, she could have picked up the phone, sent a text, anything at least once. The timing of her sudden concern was beyond suspicious, so I ignored her. But she wouldn't give up. That evening, she called, and I snapped. She insisted I help her reconnect with her children, but I flat out refused. I knew, with every fiber of my being, that she wasn't pursuing their well-being. She was pursuing their money. If she truly regretted her actions, she would have contacted them directly, swallowed her pride, rather than coming to me. But her ego, her monstrous sense of entitlement, wouldn't allow it. She still expected them to come to her, even though she was the one who had made all the mistakes. She tried to argue, to deny she was after their money, calling my suggestion offensive. I told her I wasn't implying anything. It was glaringly obvious. I felt appalled, disgusted by her audacity. Then, the real venom came out. She accused me of stealing everything from her, first her children, and now her riches. That was it. I informed her that I didn't need the money, and originally hadn't wanted to accept the check, but now I was going to take every single penny because she didn't deserve it. Of course, she's now crying on social media, twisting my words, trying to make me out to be the villain. Some of our relatives, who only know her side, are saying I went too far, that I'm greedy, that I owe her an apology. It's utterly absurd. Was I in the wrong for telling my sister she didn't deserve a dime of the money her children had chosen to give me? So, I took some advice and recounted the whole sordid situation to my nieces and nephew. They'd already heard bits and pieces from other relatives and had been meaning to talk to me. But after I called them over and laid it all out, they confirmed what I already knew. They believed I did exactly the right thing. My nephew, always the most outspoken, was blunt. He said he had never, not once in his entire life, considered his mother a maternal figure. He blamed her, unequivocally, for her absence. My nieces, too emotional to speak much, nodded in fierce agreement. He explained that Diana only ever spoke to me because she had never done even the basic minimum for them. She received child support, yet still humiliated them, made them feel like burdens, like they were wrong just for existing. It wasn't their fault. They reiterated that they would not be contacting their mother, no matter what, and urged me to stand up for myself, to tell my side of the story online now that Diana was smearing my name. They believed it was the only way to get the truth out. So, that's what I'm going to do. I was relieved to have their support, especially since my parents have chosen to stay completely out of it, claiming they don't want to get involved. It's strange, their neutral stance, considering Diana cut them off too after the kids left. But at least my nieces and nephew are in my corner. Many people have asked why I didn't just petition for custody, why I didn't have the children taken away from Diana if I knew she was a bad mother. And I explained this already, but it's important to clarify. While her actions were wrong, she wasn't torturing, physically abusing, or neglecting them to the point of starvation. She was emotionally absent. Yes, constantly harsh, but legally, it was a gray area. If I had filed for custody, it was highly unlikely I would have gotten them. Courts overwhelmingly prioritized keeping families together. These children had already lost their father. The court would have wanted them to stay with their only biological parent. And I knew, absolutely knew, that if I had taken legal action, Diana would have made sure I never saw them again. She would have taken them far away. It was an impossible gamble. So I played it safe, choosing to stay in their lives, to be their constant, their safe harbor. I don't know if it was the perfect choice in the long run, but at the time, it felt like the only choice. Maybe there were other paths, but I did what I believed was right. It was a struggle, agonizing over the decision for years. years, but I concluded it was better for them to stay with their mother and keep me and my parents in their lives, rather than risk losing all contact. I hope that answers the question some of you had. Maybe I come across as a villain in some people's eyes, but I honestly don't care. I know the kids are doing well, and I did everything I could to keep them happy and safe. I was always there, and because of that, I have no guilt, no regrets. It's been a week since Diana's initial message, and my phone has been ringing off the hook. Family members, people who've spoken to Diana, all calling to point out my mistakes and scold me. It was incredibly tiresome, and I was swamped with work, which is why I couldn't post sooner. But today, I reached my breaking point. After another quick talk with my nephew and nieces, I decided it was finally time to make my own public post, sharing my side of the story, and in many ways, there's two. I don't think anyone in the family truly grasped how much those kids had suffered, how many cruel taunts they endured every single day, simply because Diana chose to get pregnant young and drop everything for her boyfriend. Even after all that, she continued to blame everyone else for her own choices, pretending she was doing her best for her children, when in reality, she was never truly present. Since she was telling everyone I had stolen her children and was now stealing a fortune from them, now that they were financially successful, I felt people deserved the truth. Not just her twisted version where she was the victim instead of the person who tormented everyone around her. They had already judged me, so many of them, because they only knew her narrative and they sympathized with her. But I deserved to share my side, and so did her children. So, a few hours ago, I typed everything up and published the post. So far, Diana hasn't said a word to me directly. The only texts I've received are from those same relatives who were judging me earlier. They've abruptly changed their tune, now attempting to apologize for judging me too soon. Frankly, it means nothing to me. I just wanted them to know the truth. I don't care what they think of me. It was crucial for me to speak my truth, to share how Diana truly treated her children, which is why they wanted nothing to do with her anyway. Now that everything is out there, I'm ready to move on. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with Diana anymore. I was perfectly content for those 6 years when she didn't contact me, and I believe the same can be said for her children. I still don't understand why she felt the need to create so much drama. If she wanted money, she could have just asked for it, instead of pretending to want another chance at motherhood. Well, it's been just a day since I wrote that post, and Diana apparently woke up today deciding to escalate. Instead of contacting me directly, she became even more dramatic and started commenting on my post, attempting to spin a narrative that I was lying. But it wasn't going to work. Not this time. Immediately, as soon as she tried to twist things, her children began commenting, responding to her directly. They reminded her of specific, painful episodes from their childhood where she had been cruel, neglectful, utterly dismissive. It was a sight to behold, a public shaming that lasted about an hour, and I felt absolutely no remorse. Neither did my nephew or nieces. We were all, frankly, thoroughly enjoying the process. They were utterly humiliating her, dismantling every single lie she tried to utter to make me look bad. Every falsehood was exposed, right there for everyone to see. I'm so glad I chose to do this on a weekend. Otherwise, we might not have been able to respond so swiftly. After about an hour of this relentless truth bombing, she started deleting her comments, desperately trying to erase her lies. But it was too late. Many others had already witnessed the entire exchange, and I believe she started getting called out by strangers too. She kept erasing, backtracking on everything she'd said, and then she blocked me. She blocked her own children too. I'm guessing that was her way of surrendering, and I'm glad she did, because she would have absolutely lost this fight. We clearly had the upper hand, morally and factually. I thought deleting the comments would be the final, bitter end of our connection, but she chose to contact me one last time, personally. She messaged me, asking if I was happy now that I had presented her as the monster and everyone hated her. It was so ironic, it almost made me laugh, because that was exactly what she had tried to do to me first. She started it, and now, when faced with the consequences, she couldn't take it. I truly don't understand why people try to dish it out when they know they can't handle it in return. Just don't cause drama if you don't want to be held accountable for the results, right? Anyway, I ignored that message, and that's what we're all going to do for the rest of our lives. She's simply not worth our attention anymore. She's proven that, and for the first time in a very long time, I feel a true, deep sense of peace. Have you ever had to stand up to a truly entitled family member? What was your breaking point, and how did you finally draw the line? Share your own experiences and thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know what you think.